Alright guys, so today we're going to be checking out my 2007 Ford Fusion, which I've owned for a couple months, and I'm now here to give you a review. As you can see, if I just go through the settings real quick, this car actually gets really good gas mileage. Obviously the gas is kind of switched, so it's gone down a little bit, but I'm at 23 miles to the gallon, which isn't actually too bad. What this car has is, there's some packages to it. As you can see, I have a couple settings here. Heated seats and some of the more normal standard stuff. Nothing too crazy, but pretty clean overall. But with that being said, let's go ahead, check it out, and I'm going to be talking while I drive and tell you what's great, what's not so great, and why this car is pretty good as a first car. So back in October 2022, I bought this car for around $5,700 with a cracked windshield, but overall the car is pretty clean with only 57,000 miles on it. But here's what I have to say about my 2007 Ford Fusion. Honestly, it drives pretty great. I haven't had issues with it yet, knock on wood, but the car is really stable. It has great gas mileage, and I honestly haven't had an issue with it yet. With roads with the speed limit like at 50 miles an hour, the car is pretty stable. You don't really feel like the bumps unless you're going over potholes, obviously, and stuff like that. But honestly, the car is pretty good. This car comes with some pretty nice features along with all-wheel drive, heated seats, and more importantly, a fun time in the winter. I think the base model price of this car when it was first new was around $20,000 or so. I could be wrong, so I'll put a number up here to see if that was correct or not. This car comes along with a 3-liter V6, making roughly around 221 horsepower. And I gotta say, even though it only has 221 horsepower, it's really not that bad. Especially if you were trying to do a 0 to 60. Note that I will not be doing a 0 to 60 in this video, as I do not want to get a ticket. But I'll put something up here that shows the 0 to 60 time for the Ford Fusion, and I think it's around 7 or 8 seconds or so, which actually isn't that bad at all. Especially for a car that's meant to be just a cruising car to go to the grocery store with. Nothing really special with this car, I'd say, but it's a nice car to drive around in. Now, sure, there's a lot of great things with this car, but there's some minor issues that I want to talk about. The first issue I want to talk about is room space, especially being inside the vehicle. Now, I know this is what I would call a modern sedan car, but you would think it would have some space for your passengers in the back as well. And as of personal experience, as someone that is around 5'9", they do give you plenty of leg space if the person in front of you also isn't 6 foot tall, which can become an issue if you're all reasonably tall. Which isn't really much of an issue, more of a skill issue. So I won't really put that in the category as a bad issue, just something I thought that was interesting. An issue I want to talk about is when you're going on the highway and the speed limit's around 60, 65, maybe even 70. After a certain mile an hour, you will start to hear the tires. Which isn't a bad thing. It's not like the tires are going to explode or anything. But you can definitely tell that there's barely any installation from you and to the outside, because you can hear almost everything from outside to inside. Now I know, yes, this isn't a $50,000 Mercedes, and it doesn't have 500 horsepower like some cars do now, but it's a really nice car. Like, if you don't have that much money in the bank, and you're looking for an all-wheel drive car for the winter, per se, this is probably one of the cars you should be able to take a look at and be like, oh, okay. Even though it probably doesn't look the best, it drives good, it gets good gas mileage, it's all-wheel drive, and there's not a whole lot of issues with it. So I might just go ahead and buy it. Alright, now one thing I did notice with the suspension is that you do feel the bumps more than you would on like a Subaru, I would say. I could be wrong, but I definitely feel like you can feel the bumps for sure. It's like driving a 2004 Polaris 340 with no suspension while trying to take a jump. you can feel it for sure. Now, one of the great things I did learn about this car and its suspension, that is because it's so stiff, it makes going around turns a breeze. As you can see, I'm going through this turn now around the speed limit because, you know, I am obligated to say that I'm going a speed limit so that way I don't get a ticket. But I am going speed limit nonetheless. With that being said, I'm going around these corners and I'm realizing that it handles actually quite well. There was one thing I did notice, and that was my brakes weren't exactly great. But I also can't really say much because these brakes are original, so they're not very good. Versus if I were to be in a new Ford Fusion, the brakes are probably a lot better. So I can't really say anything about the brakes, other than that they're just decent. And they'll get you to stop. You can stop quickly. They're just probably not as great as they were. Now, is this car worth the price? Yeah, I'd say so. If you find a really good deal on Facebook Marketplace that, let's say, only has under 100,000 miles, has all-wheel drive, and has the things that you like, that's probably under $5,000 or $6,000, I'd say you're probably getting a good deal, in that you shouldn't have to worry if it's trash or not. Obviously, look at the description, see if it's bad, see if they need like brake rotors and stuff like that, because that does happen on Facebook Marketplace. But if you find a clean Ford Fusion like this one, you're probably getting a good deal. Is this car better than a Prius? Yes. I would like to say that almost every single vehicle out there that isn't a Prius is better than a Prius. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you want me to do another car review like this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And with that being said, have a good rest of your day, everyone, and I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.